If I am a star, the people made me a star.
Marilyn Monroe.
Life is stayed here and now. Fame is fickle.
Marilyn Monroe.
I give you the two most exciting words in the modern dictionary. Marilyn Monroe!
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of All Things Marilyn. My name is Scott Fortner, Marilyn Monroe historian, collector, and owner of the Marilyn Monroe Collection.
I'm Elisa Jordan. I'm the founder of LA Woman Tours, and I am also a Marilyn historian.
We are super excited today because we have with us celebrity makeup artist with 1.2 million followers on TikTok and nearly 500,000 on Instagram, the one, the only, Erin Parsons. Welcome, Erin, to the show.
Wow, that sounds, I feel like a big deal when you say it like that.
You are a big deal.
You are a big deal. I'm a fangirl. I've been excited about you being here.
When we first started talking about the podcast, I said, oh, let's get Erin Parsons on the show.
Yeah, if you want to talk makeup, you want to talk Marilyn, yeah, I'm your girl. I'm loving your guys' podcast. It's so good. And it fuels my Marilyn obsession, and to hear like people that really know facts, the stuff that you guys know, it blows my mind, and it's so enjoyable to listen to.
It's called being a nerd.
Right.
That's all it is.
But you're saying as a result of a combined 40 plus years of research and writing about Marilyn, and just really now being able to share it via the podcast. Erin, for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, why don't you talk a bit about what you do, your work, your clients, and your accomplishments?
I'm a makeup artist. I started in retail. I worked in retail for like 10 years. I moved to New York when I was 28, and I started assisting the legendary Pat McGrath, makeup artist. I met Gigi Hadid, who became a really good friend, and she really helped my career, and we started working together all the time. Around 2017, I signed with Maybelline as their global makeup artist. Since that moment, I have done basically every commercial, every ad you've seen in a magazine, and anything that basically had to do with Maybelline, I had worked on it. And now, of course, my assistants are taking over some of the stuff, so I don't have to do everything, but I still do all the ads and the commercials. Then COVID hit, and I started doing my own makeup and just sharing my vintage love and my obsession with makeup and with old Hollywood stars and what they would wear. Crazily enough, TikTok and Instagram blew up from that. Finding that people enjoyed that content just fueled me. I could do that all day, every day. And to be honest, I don't work as much as I used to as a makeup artist because I'm really enjoying this content creation life. Some other people I've worked with, I'll just throw out some names, name drop to make it sound cool. We got Gigi, we got Bella, Kendall Jenner, Giselle, Adriana Lima, my very good friend, Emily DiDonato. I've worked with so many amazing people, and a lot of them are my friends, and they support me in this whole content creation because Gigi and Bella like follow me on TikTok and like, fully supportive. It's really fun.
Yeah, and they're huge names. And didn't you do her makeup for the 2022 Met Gala?
Yeah, I've done Gigi's makeup, quite a few Met Galas. One of my favorites, I have two, but my first favorite is the white eyelashes, the feather white eyelashes. That had a pretty big viral moment. The second one that I really loved was the blue eyeshadow. Actually, nobody can see me, but this is like what I'm wearing right now.
Oh, we can.
It looks great. For those of you who can't see, it looks amazing.
I'm going to reveal my new hair color on my TikTok soon, so they'll be able to see what this looks like. But yeah, it's just a nod to old Hollywood and that sort of that little pop of color with the beautiful eyeliner. And she looked amazing. And I think blue eyeshadow is trending now, possibly because of that.
There you go. You're a trendsetter. Your work has been seen in Chaos, Harper's Bazaar, V Magazine, the American, British, Italian, and Japanese editions of Vogue. And you've worked with Calvin Klein, you've worked with Reebok and Tommy Hilfiger, and you did Jean-Paul Gaultier's final runway show.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So you're incredibly accomplished. What's really cool is for those of us who are just really on the fringes of that world and just looking in, it's like you're just 1 degree of separation. It's amazing and great to have you on the show. So thanks for being part of this.
Yeah, and for hardcore makeup nerds, the fact that you worked with Pat McGrath is incredible. So for those of you who aren't hardcore makeup nerds, Pat McGrath is a big name in makeup artistry. You learned from the very best.
Yeah, I would say Pat is probably, I think, the number one makeup artist in the world if we're looking at fashion, celebrity, and just her span of work. And I was her first assistant for like 7 years. So I got to create a lot of looks, actually, things that are like on her packaging. And like I was a part of all of that.
Mhm.
And I'm really proud of it. I have to say it's strange because hearing everything you say, you guys make me feel so good. And it was a dream of mine moving to New York. I lived in a basement, ate ketchup soup. I had nothing. I had no money. And to survive in New York is tough enough. I do feel I made it. I finally found that success. And one thing I relate to Marilyn is I think towards the end, she's like, I found fame. I've had it. What's next? And I sort of felt that way now with makeup. Okay, I've had those covers and I've had these amazing moments with a muse like Gigi, who I love doing her makeup, and Bella and all these girls. And I don't know, now I'm exploring another territory. Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to share with us.
Oh, I can tell you. I'm trying to have a TV show. I would like to do a show on makeup history and go to explore in China and learn about Chinese opera and ancient makeup, or just travel the world. Every culture has a different style. And I want to know about all of it. And I want to bring that to the masses. So we're working on things, and it's going to be, we're working on things. So we'll see what happens.
I'm in.
That is really exciting.
You already have a viewer.
Congratulations.
That's the thing. If my TikTok audience says anything, it's okay. I think maybe the show is needed. We don't really have anything like it.
So Erin, I love the story of how we met because I think it was something that was meant to be. I got an email from you out of the blue, didn't even know who you were, and basically proposing working together on a project that you were doing with Emily, where you were recreating the Happy Birthday, Mr. President look. And you gave me a date that actually happened to be a date that I was going to be in New York. The chances of that are really incredible considering I'm in California and I was coming back to New York. It was 2019. Or was it 2018?
Yeah, gosh, I don't even remember. I have to look at Emily's video. If people want to know the reference, Emily DiDonato, YouTube, when I transformed her into Marilyn. Scott is in that episode, and that's how we met. And I was so nervous when I messaged you, and then we called. I was like, oh, so nervous to talk to you because for one, you had all these Marilyn things. Like, oh my God, he like has Marilyn's like stuff. And also just because you're so professional and you're so knowledgeable, and the blog was so great. So yeah, I was really nervous to reach out to you, but it worked out. And not only were you going to be there then, but you were also doing a Marilyn exhibition. So you were bringing her stuff as it was.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that was meant to be. And that doesn't always happen. But I think what it's resulted in me meeting somebody that's kind of one of my favorite people. And let me tell you why. Because you're an example of what it means to follow your passion and good things happen. Whenever I experience you, you have the most amazing positive energy that just infiltrates the room, and you can see how excited you are and you get other people excited. I enjoy so much spending time with you and just having you in my life. And so I really think that that happened for a reason. And I hope you recognize how much joy you bring to other people.
Oh, God, that is so sweet. I love when we get to talk because I don't know anybody else that I can geek out about Marilyn to. And all my life, I loved Marilyn, but I didn't have anybody who loved her like I did. And, you know, I have to say, I know that we all connect with her in some way, but for me, seeing someone who came from such a hard childhood and knowing what I came from, it showed me that if with hard work and determination, anyone can be successful. And she really proves it. And she went so far beyond successful. This is a legend until the end of times. But yeah, I'm so happy I met you, Scott. And honestly, like even you asking me to do this, you know, I'm so lazy. I do TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff. I say no to a lot of things because I'm so lazy. But when you asked me this, I was like, let's do it. I can't wait.
Well, as I mentioned before we got started, I have a lot of friends that are totally fangirling out just at the mere prospect that you're coming onto the podcast. And Elisa actually reached out to quite a few people and saying, Erin Parsons is coming on the show. What do you think we should ask her?
Did they give you questions?
I had a bunch of questions written out, and they were saying, oh, these look good. So they were approved.
The name of our podcast is All Things Marilyn. So tell us about Marilyn's influence in your life and your work and what your connection with her is.
I know I saw her when I was like 6. I don't know why I really remember being like 6 years old, because what do we remember about that time in our life? But her face, her being changed the course of my life. As a child, I didn't have a great childhood. It was actually pretty horrible. And my escape became these old movies, and I would see Marlene Dietrich and Jean Harlow and Josephine Baker. I would watch Turner Classic Movies, like just a little kid, a little couch potato watching all these movies. And of course, Marilyn was my favorite. I just recognized that putting this makeup on and creating this character, because I started to quickly learn Norma Jean into Marilyn, finding all the little documentaries on VHS. And that was as I got older. And I started to understand that makeup and beauty and the glamour and all that could create this character that you could become, which is what I do all the time. And I do it on the people I work with. And with her, she created a signature. So you don't even need a face, a red lip, a beauty mark, and blonde hair. And you go, oh, I'm Marilyn. And I love that. Marlene Dietrich and the thin eyebrows. I started to just become completely enveloped in this glamorous world. My escape then became, of course, Marilyn, anything Marilyn I could find. I collected all the books and VHS, anything, and makeup. And I couldn't afford really to buy certain things. So oh my God, I'm going to admit something really bad. I was like a little thief. I would steal red lipstick from the store.
It's okay. The statute of limitations is up, so you can talk about it.
I told Maybelline this. I was like, I stole Great Lash from the store. And I'm like, now here I am, like doing the commercials for Great Lash. Like, how sick is that?
And did they go, oh, that was you?
I do not want someone that's so embarrassing. But anyway, I was like not trying to be like a klepto. I really wanted red lipstick so I could look like Marilyn Monroe, and no one was gonna buy it for me. So yeah, I took it. And I started playing with my makeup when I was very young, and I know I wasn't doing a great job, but looking at her, like, okay, I said I wasn't doing a great job because one time I showed my mom my eyebrows and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, they look like Groucho Marx. And I did not know who Groucho Marx was, but you know what that means. I had 2 squares on my eyebrows. But anyway, through these icons and through Marilyn, I started to learn how to do makeup because I would just try to look like them. And that brought me to here. I still try to look like Marilyn.
Talking about movies and how you really got started with Marilyn, how did movies influence the makeup industry and makeup trends in general?
I mean, I think what it helped do is to create stars. Because if you think of someone like Theda Bara, even just looking at Theda Bara, I don't know if I look at her and go, wow, is she something? She was beautiful. But when she did her take on Cleopatra and put the black coal all around the eyes, it became iconic. I think the Cupid bow lip for Clara Bow definitely helped make her an it girl. And it became this trend where everybody else would follow that, even though she actually just had pretty small lips. I know that there was Max Factor doing this thing where he would do the thumb and creating this mouth. But I think a lot of it comes from a sort of icon of the moment. And I even said in an interview recently, I was like, I think Bella Hadid is one of the reasons why we have thin eyebrows. So I think it's coming back, I should say, that thin eyebrows are coming back. I think what it is that we needed the makeup in the movie so that people could see the faces of the character when you go back to silent films, putting the dark around the eyes and whatever, just because of the way that the lighting and the fuzziness. But I think what it did ultimately is create these icons so you could really change the way you looked and become something otherworldly that people would want to look like, because the people weren't wearing makeup like that walking down the street.
Well, makeup was in its infancy during the early years, wasn't it?
I mean, you know, makeup has been around since ancient times. I would say when film came through the 1910s, maybe, makeup was really shunned. Makeup was frowned upon. If you were a society woman, you wouldn't be caught wearing rouge around that time. Now, as we go into the 1920s, of course, the young generation of the flappers, red lipstick was rebellious, smoking, cutting off your hair, bobbing it. So I think we saw that shift from like the Victorian to Edwardian era to the jazz era. I think that's when we start seeing makeup really become popularized, especially heavy makeup, which was awesome.
I was wondering if you could go into early movie makeup.
When you have the early movie makeup, it was still basically stage and theater makeup. So it was mostly grease paints. So what would happen is the reason, say, the Cupid's bow lip was created, supposedly, like I was mentioning before, Max Factor would take his thumb and he would dot one dot on the top lip on the left, one on the right, turn his thumb over and dot onto the bottom lip. And then he would just blend that out with a lip brush. And the reason for this to not go all the way to the lip line to make it so small was because grease paint under hot lights would melt. Your mouth would just run and you would have lipstick all over your face. So they had to create these ways of making the grease paint work in film. And that's often why you see so many really small mouths during the silent era. But Max Factor is one of the first that started to develop Hollywood makeup. And I think only until recently, we don't really hear about Max Factor anymore, but probably up until even the 70s, it was a real leader in makeup. And there's some Max Factor things that were in Marilyn's kit
Yeah.
that we'll touch on later.
That is true.
Keeping along that same theme, how did makeup become integral to movies and glamour in general?
Again, it was this sort of need to be able to see the actors in that really heavy lighting. If you ever go, you have a lot of like foundation or whatever on, and you're in front of a bunch of lights and you look at your phone and you become a ghost and you just have like two nostrils. That happens to me if I put too much powder on. I think that was what was happening to them under those hot lights. You look at Valentino, I mean, he's in full drag. So I think it started with that. But when the public starts to go, oh, I want eyebrows like so-and-so, then you understand that's become greater than just being in the movies. Now you have a public image. So I think that's how makeup in general became integral. Now I find it integral in people's lives because it's a form of art, or it's just a form of adding a bit of open up the eyes, brighten up the eyes, add a little color to the cheeks. So I think it was a learning process for everyone. I think Max Factor was, the Westmores were a huge reason why we have the looks that we look at today in old Hollywood glam.
So when Marilyn was growing up in the 30s and 40s, we reach high glam, high old Hollywood glam, we'd call it now. How have you seen it evolve over the decades? Because we've had a lot of trends, and it all goes back to making yourself look and feel beautiful, but those standards have changed. Can you give us some insight or just some of your favorite looks maybe?
Ooh, my favorite looks. I would say, okay, I love the Jazz Age because they went in. I love that eyebrows were getting shaved off and drawn downwards. So there's this little sad little Pierrot clown sort of look. And I think when I look at that particular makeup, Clara Bow, Josephine Baker, BB Daniels, ooh, they nail it when it comes to that, the big clumpy lashes and everything. Going into the 30s, you have Jean Harlow and Marlene Dietrich with those thin, beautiful eyebrows. And I think that was so magical. Actually, I heard Marlene Dietrich used to braid her hair, pull it all back, and then she would put the wig on top. So she never had a facelift, but she would lift her face up like that. So when you see Marlene Dietrich, see, I'm going on and on, but when she's singing on stage, she's almost 60, I think. And she looked, supposedly it wasn't facelift. It was all her hair braided and a wig on top. And I'm going to try this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to grow my hair out and try that.
It's so messed up because the way I found this, I was looking for Westmore stuff on newspapers.com. And it was an article by one of the Westmores that totally exposed what Marlene Dietrich did for her. I was shocked.
Wow. What year was that?
It must have been in the 60s because I think that was when she was on stage. I'll have to find it and show you.
Late 50s, 60s, when she was doing her cabaret act.
Yeah, cabaret act. And that, if anything, that brings me back to Marilyn. I have a really hard time staying focused on one question.
It's all good info.
Okay. But it does bring me back to Marilyn because I think what was so great about her look, and I keep looking at a picture of her over here, and it's such a high definition, amazing picture. But I think she got a lot of the techniques that she did in her movements, her hair, her makeup from all these different stars, and then combine them together to create this iconic look. And I can see the Garbo eye. Of course, we have the Jean Harlow platinum hair. You know, the certain way she lined her lips, that could have been the makeup artist too. But yeah, I see a lot of other people in her.
Marilyn clearly enjoyed makeup, and she collaborated with Whitey Snyder on her look. And he said himself that she was very talented when it came to makeup in her own right. And you just said you think that Marilyn took inspiration from a lot of these other celebrities. What do you think your thoughts are on her talents and her ability to do her own makeup?
I recently listened to My Story. She was talking about how when she started wearing the sweater, and that changed everything, that she had started to apply lipstick, and the reaction that she got from the boys around her, and how finally people were paying attention to her, because as an orphan, she had never gotten that sort of attention. She understood the power of makeup from such an early age. And I think that's why she became so good at it, because she knew that it was important. She was stunning. She didn't need it, but it's important to the character and to be that sort of otherworldly, over the top glamour that people want to create. That's a good thing too. If you can make something that people want to create, if you can be a Halloween costume, you've made it. Your look has made it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like she really understood the power, especially of a red lipstick. And you see when she's young, she has this beautiful, gorgeous, glowing skin. It doesn't look like she has any makeup on, and she's very fresh and hardly anything on the eyes, and just the lipstick. One thing I love about seeing Norma Jean's lipstick to where Marilyn's lipstick, it really changed a lot through the decades. So like 40s Norma Jean, Marilyn, she'd really overdraw that top part. So when she smiled, the lip became really close to the nose. And then you start noticing she starts to underdraw the Cupid's bow in the 50s. Maybe Whitey did that. I don't know. But she goes under the lip and she starts to put the lip down, as we know, that move. And I think maybe she could look at those pictures of her and see, oh, maybe she did. I don't know this for sure, but could see that where it's like a symmetry thing. So a little more space there might give more to the mouth, adding more of a heart shape versus the overdrawn that can sometimes cheapen a look, even though I overdraw the hell out of my lips. I don't care. It can sometimes cheapen a look. And then we go into 60s Marilyn, and now the mouth is almost her natural mouth. She's not overdrawing so much. The colors have changed. I love seeing the evolution of her makeup.
You know, that's a really interesting observation. Some cinematographers, directors have actually said in the past about Marilyn that when they were setting up a photo shoot or a scene, she would actually say to them, "Are you sure that's the best place for that camera? Or are you sure that that's the best place for that light? Might you want to move that over there just a little bit?" And she was right. And it just goes to show how in tune she was with what you described. Maybe I just need to make a little adjustment in my makeup here or there. Same thing in being set up for a photo shoot or for a scene for one of her films. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that she would do this stuff, because when I work with certain supermodels, like the supermodels like Naomi and Linda and all those ones back in the day, they know stuff like that. And some of the young folks don't always, but they do. And when you work with real stars, Marlene Dietrich supposedly did this with direct light. So that tells me even more about Marilyn, that she really understood the whole look, and she understood when she looked the best. Wow. Very cool.
When she's transitioning from modeling to acting, we see a slow evolution. And then all of a sudden in Niagara, she's Marilyn. So she and Whitey, I'm sure it was a team effort, hit on something. And I've always wondered, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this as a makeup artist, but they hit on it and they stopped experimenting. They knew this is it. This is the look. And how do you know as a makeup artist, this is it, we got it?
First off, those two combined, what a perfect recipe. Somehow Whitey understood there's certain makeup artists that don't work well on certain models, whereas another makeup artist just gets it. They get it, it works. And that can work in many different ways. I guess I could say it like that. Like maybe one person's good on Gigi, but they don't get Bella. I don't know. I've just like seen that happen before. So I think that they really got each other. And I think when you start in the beginning with anybody's face as a makeup artist, you learn their face, you learn what looks good, you try things, you put things on, you do what you know at first. And then you start to see them on screen. I don't know when Whitey first started working with her, but it is interesting to see her as Nell and Don't Bother to Knock. And she really looks stunning, and she's almost there, but obviously she's not a glamorous thing. So I think that they probably, by him just seeing her face more and more, you start to understand, oh, this works better. You just get better every time. It's kind of like practicing anything. So I think that they started to just get better together. And that happens too when you start to become a star. You start working with better people. So she's got a great makeup artist, a great hairstylist, an amazing stylist or dress designer. So that kind of stuff happens. And then her learning what looks good on herself as well.
It was her very first screen test that she was assigned Whitey.
Oh my gosh. What in that screen test was the John Huston?
No, it was before that. It was 1946. It was her first contract at 20th Century Fox. They didn't keep her. So she went on to 6 months at Columbia, and that's when she made Ladies of the Chorus. So that would not have been Whitey. But this is just a fun fact because we both like beauty. Columbia was the home of Rita Hayworth. And I know you like Rita too, because I saw your video on her. And a woman by the name of Helen Hunt was Rita's hairdresser. And Rita had one of the most iconic hairstyles, not just of the 40s, but in all of Hollywood. Helen Hunt was styling Marilyn's hair for her 6 months at Columbia. So she had this long Rita Hayworth hair, and it looked amazing on her, but that wasn't the look she stayed with. And then a few years later, she goes to MGM, and that's where she makes the Asphalt Jungle. And Sydney, I can never pronounce his last name.
Juleroff.
I can't pronounce it. Sydney, wherever you are in heaven, I apologize. I can't pronounce your name. But he is the one who convinced her to cut her hair. And so that was a big step. And then she went back to 20th Century Fox, and she went back to Whitey and the Fox hairdressers. So this is way more information than anyone needs to know, but I get excited.
Well, another interesting element is who was Marilyn's first screen test with?
I don't remember.
Robert Wagner.
That's why I know that. For some weird reason, I keep watching all these old Larry King interviews. And actually, I have an idea for a show for you guys. You need to like take some of these celebrities and debunk Mickey Rooney claiming that he named Marilyn.
Right.
It's because those episodes with Tony Curtis are so funny. They are great. But I have to say, Elisa, that is so interesting. And that's the kind of stuff I live for. I have Sydney's book. I never ended up reading. I read only the parts about Marilyn, but I got to read the whole. But knowing that Whitey started with Marilyn, see, now I have to look back. And you think about Ladies of the Chorus, and that hair was stunning.
Oh, I love that hair on her.
Yeah, I did too. But it was Rita's hair.
It was Rita's hair.
Yeah.
It was very period.
Mhm.
And I also think maybe she made some tweaks to her face a little bit. And then, of course, maybe the short hair came if she started bleaching it so much, she probably did have to cut it a bit shorter because it does break off anyway. I don't know if that had some form of it with Sydney or if he does really take credit to say that he told her to cut her hair. I don't know. But obviously, yeah, she finally came into what was her iconic look. But the crazy thing is that it wasn't the only iconic look she had, because the 60s was totally iconic and it was a totally different look than the 50s. And I love seeing those changes.
Something's Got to Give Marilyn is one of my favorite Marilyns.
Oh, it's so good. And of course, the happy birthday, that hair, Kenneth.
Yes. Kenneth Patel.
Kenneth Patel. Yeah, I love Marilyn's 60s transition, but you really see her going through it because in 58, 59, 60, it's a little bit like, we're not sure where we're at. Let's Make Love. To me, and not that it wasn't her best look, it just, there was this transition from the 50s into the 60s that no one had gotten yet. And then all of a sudden, I think too, another thing is Kenneth. I think that made a huge difference because he just got that bouffant hair. He just got it.
Yeah, he did everybody's hair.
Really wanted to ask this question of you because I've always loved and appreciated Whitey's relationship with Marilyn. They weren't just client and makeup artist. They were very close friends. And even I, who am not a movie star, am very close to my hairdresser, and her sister does my eyebrows. I've been going to them for 20 years and a bond really does form. I imagine it's the same for you, especially when you are responsible, at least in part, for someone who earns a living off their looks. They really have to trust and depend on you. And I was wondering if you could give us insight into that relationship between someone like Marilyn, or in an updated world, Bella or Gigi, and their glam squad.
You're so close to this person. You're literally 5 inches from their face. One, you have to have great energy with them because they have to now go on and perform. So they have to start in a good spot. So I think part of the reason maybe I've had a good career so far, I try not to come in with my personal problems. It's about the person in my chair. It's about me making them look and feel good, and about rooting them on when they're on camera. As a makeup artist, you give a lot to the person that you're working with. And I'm sure Whitey gave a lot for Marilyn, because the truth is, wow, these people, the celebrities, they can become your friends and really close. You can know them for years. And a lot of things maybe most of the public does not know. You're that close with them. When you become almost like family, you can take the brunt of a lot of things too. You can take their negative energy when they're feeling bad, when they're feeling insecure. And I'm sure Marilyn dealt with that. I have a feeling that Whitey probably went through a lot with her, but they clearly loved each other. You can see it in the photos, holding hands, carrying her, hugging, leaning on each other. You can see that there was a real relationship there, that he was a support for her. He was also such a great makeup artist. So you don't just have people on your team because they're great people. He had talent, and that's another reason why he stuck around. But it's pretty clear that him and his wife, who worked with her, really did care about her deeply as a human being. But the celebrities can be difficult, let's be honest. And I've heard you, Scott, say that someone had told you Marilyn wasn't always nice. And that is true with anybody you work with all the time. There's times when you have to deal with the real situation in that moment. And it can be hard, to be honest.
We're all human.
Yeah.
You know, we're not perfect. And I think that's a thing that I find so interesting. So many people don't want to hear or accept anything negative about Marilyn. You know, they've placed her on this pedestal. And I just think we have to remember she was a real person. She had good days and bad days, and she's just like all of us, just another person.
I wanted to touch on this because when I was young, she was a fantasy, she still is, fantasy goddess, out of this world dream character. And then I started to work with celebrities. And then I went, oh, no, I know who Marilyn is now. I know,
Right.
because I worked with
Right.
some Marilyns in the world. Nobody's on
Yeah.
Marilyn's level, let's be honest. But
Yeah. Yeah, she was
Yeah.
human. Definitely her and Whitey were very close. Of course, Marilyn gifted Whitey the money clip where she inscribed "Whitey dear, while I'm still warm." Interesting tidbit that a lot of people may not know is he was the makeup artist for a very popular show in the 70s, Little House on the Prairie. And I know Melissa Gilbert, who was Laura Ingalls, and Allison Ingram, who was Nellie Olson. And they both tell stories of Whitey on the set showing them Marilyn's money clip that she gifted him, and him telling stories about Marilyn and doing her makeup when they were young girls acting on Little House on
He
the
kept
Prairie.
it and he carried it with him.
I want to now talk to them and be like, what did he tell you?
I know. Well, Allison has a book and there's a little bit in there, but most of the book is about her. Of course, it's her book, but she mentions that in there.
Erin, if somebody wanted to recreate or have a look inspired by Marilyn, what are some of the things that you would suggest to them?
I think there's two different ways that you can approach this. One, you can do real Marilyn, and then you would go more natural. Even when I have turned Emily DiDonato into Marilyn, I even went too far. It is so hard to not go too far when you're doing Marilyn. I would almost go more natural than you think. And then the other option is go completely over the top, go full drag, go like Amanda Lepore type of Marilyn. And then you create the caricature so people can really know, oh yeah, that's definitely, she's playing Marilyn Monroe. And then I also think you have to get your decades right, because you can't do 50s hair with 60s makeup or vice versa.
I'm not sure people would think of that, because Marilyn did have that very unique look from the 1960s where she started doing her eyes differently, and of course her hair was different. You don't want to blend the looks.
Yeah, and it's even when I did the Happy Birthday Mr. President look, I did a red lip, and I think she did wear a red lip. It wasn't like a super strong, intense red, but it's hard to tell because you don't have a lot of pictures from the night, but also that was 60s Marilyn, so I got it wrong.
I'm glad you brought this up because sometimes Marilyn doesn't always wear red. She wears like a fuchsia color sometimes, and then later it gets almost like a peachy pink, and sometimes it is bright pink. And I was wondering if you could go into the different Marilyn looks and how to create different Marilyns and what those looks represent about her. What I mean by that is she wasn't always vampy. People tend to think of her as high glam, and that's not always the case.
As far as her lip color, and I had done something where I showed one of her lipsticks. It was Bachelor's Carnation from Revlon, and it is a super fuchsia red. And I really think it looks exactly like Niagara, that lip color, and in How to Marry a Millionaire, that lip color when she's in the purple dress, that particular scene. It's this sort of fuchsia red. And somebody else had stitched my video on TikTok and did the dupe that I did. And all the comments were like, nuh-uh, Marilyn wore red. Marilyn only wore red lipstick. And I was like, no, one, nope, she didn't only wear red. And two, you think one person in their entire lifetime is going to use the same tube of lipstick forever? Come on. So Marilyn's look, yeah, it definitely changed. Like she did have the true red. I see a ton of orange red. I think a lot of it depends on the movie. So I see the orange red in Bus Stop. I can see it in some HD pictures. There's a really great book, The Marilyn Monroe Metamorphosis.
That's a great one.
Yeah, David Wills.
Oh, the pictures are so good in here. I love that she knew the author's name. It was like, yeah, no big deal. Didn't even have to look it up. You cracked me up. It's amazing.
I actually helped him a little bit on the book. He would reach out and say, well, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And he is a perfectionist to the nth degree. That book is one of the best Marilyn books.
This book is perfection. And I have used this book as references for when I am doing Marilyn's makeup, because I can see it so clearly here. For instance, well, we're just talking about the lipstick colors. You can see all the different lipstick colors she wore throughout her lifetime. And by the end, by the 1960s, there was this color called Subtle that was sold at auction. And it was a very soft, peachy sort of orange. There's this intense orange color. Oh God, now I'm getting into something that I've been researching. There was a product, Max Factor LS22, that was sold in her makeup case. I have been searching for this lipstick And I was like, I'll never find this, because what is this? What is LS22? This is clearly not a real lipstick that was sold. Right here in front of me is the color
Wow.
LS22. And there's this, we were talking about George Masters. There's this makeup artist that knew George. Anyway, this makeup artist was selling all of these products from another makeup artist named Ben. Sorry, there's all these people coming together. I was asking, do you have any old Max Factor lipsticks? And he goes, I have these 2 testers that were given to the makeup artist in maybe 1958. And Max Factor would give out these lipstick testers to get feedback and then see if the celebrities liked it. Maybe the celebrities would promote it. Then they could come out with the lipstick and give it a proper name. And I'm going to open up this lipstick. Nobody can see me out there. But the crazy thing about this lipstick is that it's orange. And I was like,
That's totally
That is
orange.
orange. So I was like, wait, no, this can't possibly be the color that she wore. Here's the thing. In your favorite, Something's Got to Give, your favorite look of Marilyn, she is wearing an orange lipstick there. In 1959, there's super high definition pictures I sent to you, Scott, to ask you about it. She's wearing an intensely orange picture. And those pictures are so high def, you can see the little blue eyeshadow she has on her eyes, which was with Arden product that's in Ripley's box. Now, LS722 also, my wonderful friend, Darian Darling, who lives in LA, and she calls Marilyn Goddess. So we're always like, well, say a good word to the goddess. And she's amazing. She's gorgeous and blonde. So anyway, Darian, I said, can you just go over to Ripley's and see if you can see the lipstick? And she went in, and the security guard that was there was flirting with her. And the security guard showed her pictures of the lipstick open. And the lipstick is orange. I mean, to me, I thought it was orange red, but then I took the picture of the lipstick she showed me and I compared it to this, and they look alike. So I'm thinking that all this time I've been searching for the holy grail of red lipsticks, and it's an orange lipstick. And I'm going to talk about it on my TikTok, but my mind is still a bit blown, and I'm not sure I'm ready to accept it yet. Well, we shall see. And then I also got to try this on, which I haven't done yet. But
I have a couple thoughts. One, when Besame did the Marilyn kit last year, was it? I think the 1960s Marilyn shade was very orange, and Scott helped on that too. But also, when you're dealing with Technicolor, sometimes they would put a different color on her, and it would register different in front of the Technicolor cameras. So if you look at her on the 7-Year Itch, it'll look red orange in the movie. But if you look at the photographs of her, it's more orange. And that's why, again, if you look at the dress, it's the same with the clothing. So that's why they would do these hair, makeup, and clothing or wardrobe tests. So the white dress in the 7-Year Itch is actually like a cream color. So that's another thing that we factor in, is the pictures that you see of her might be that color because it's going to photograph different in front of a Technicolor camera. So that adds another layer of complication when you're trying to recreate her look.
So good luck with that, she's saying.
Besame orange, I actually love that look for my 60s looks, but I don't think it's actually the Marilyn color. But how can you really match that color without the lipstick? Like we have to find who bought that lipstick. But let me read you something, because what you just said was amazing. And if you look in that book I was talking about, Metamorphosis, Whitey has a wonderful entire page talking about Marilyn's look. And thanks to that, I've learned how to do the Marilyn look, understanding the peak above the eye. But when he talks about the lipstick, he said, lipstick, we used various colors. As the industry changed, we got down to normal colors. At first, we had a hell of a time with CinemaScope. Like you said, no reds photographed anything but auburn. We had to go light pink. So Marilyn was wearing light pink in some of those films, and it was looking that bright red. That is wild to me. And I would love to know what he used. Why can't we get our hands on Whitey's kit? Where's his children? Where is his stuff? I want to find it.
I have been asking that same thing, and they once reached out to Scott too.
Yeah, his daughter Cheryl reached out to me many, many years ago, and she had all of her father's photographs of Marilyn and different types of things. She said she was looking to sell, and I suggested that she go to Julian's. I don't think that there was any makeup left from her father.
He was working.
But yeah,
I guess it makes sense.
But what I want to know is, if I could talk to his kids, I just want to know, how did he get his start in the movie industry? Why makeup? Where did he train? What else did he do in his career? How did he get so good at it? Because you have makeup artists and then you have makeup artists. I want to know all of that. How did he develop his techniques?
Yeah, that's the thing. We got the book from Sydney, so we get some hairstyle
Mhm.
background where we came from, but we don't really have much of Whitey. So we just have these
Mhm.
little pieces here and there throughout books or a few interviews here and there, and I just cling on to every word. And also, to say this too, he was a straight male. So
Mhm.
how did he get into makeup? Because it isn't. Was it? Oh, actually, you know what? A lot of straight males did makeup back then. All the Westmores were actually.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, and they had a not quite a monopoly, but pretty close to a monopoly on the makeup industry to the point that it was hard to break in.
Mhm.
And Sydney, the guy whose name I can't pronounce, he says a straight male. He said he had an affair with Marilyn. I don't buy that for a second because everyone says that. But I think it was just a male dominated industry.
This is definitely a fact because Dottie Panettle, who was Judy Garland's makeup artist and Marlene Dietrich's, in her book, she talks about how these male makeup artists would push her out. They did not want her in the union. And so they would actually write letters to get her out. How insane. And also she was so good that all the stars wanted to work with her. So that's probably why they really didn't like her. So yeah, you had the Westmores, you had Ben Nye. And wasn't there a thing with Whitey too, where I think Ben Nye had gotten the credit on 7-Year Itch, and there was a letter from Marilyn to him or from him to Marilyn. Oh, don't worry about the credit. And inside that same letter, it was something about Tony Curtis. He was working with Tony Curtis. And do you know the one I'm talking about? You guys look on Julian's auctions and you type in Whitey Snyder, you'll find that letter from him to Marilyn. And it was, yeah, it's pretty fascinating because like you see that they're friends. He must not have gotten the credit for that on screen for 7-Year Itch, but he definitely did her makeup because there's pictures to prove it. And I got credit. So I think that kind of bothered him.
What probably happened, what I'm guessing, because they did this with wardrobe, they would have a head wardrobe person, and then the people working below that person would do the designs, but the lead person would get the credit, which is why, and I love Edith Head, but she got credit for a lot of movies she didn't work on.
As you know, I was an assistant.
Yeah,
I certainly do.
One of the things that I love about makeup is it feels like there's a really transformative or even empowering effect that it can have on those who wear it. And I was wondering what you thought about that and what you've seen when you're working or when you were learning on yourself, or just basically how makeup works when you put it on someone, because it's more than just eyeshadow and blush and lipstick.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see someone in your chair who you can tell they're not feeling their best. Like I mentioned, insecurity, we all go through it. They look in the mirror and they're like, ugh. And then you put the makeup on and they see the final image and they come to life. And suddenly you can see they're feeling themselves. And that's such an amazing feeling too. If they don't have that feeling, you didn't do your job right. So I think that the transformative quality, even when it just comes to beauty makeup, it can transform you just that you feel good. My favorite makeup transformative wise is when you go completely artistic. I always talk about creating characters. And the reason why for myself, I started doing TikToks as well, because I get to now live the fantasy myself. Because all these years, I've made everyone else around me beautiful while I was in sweatpants and a hat and losing myself. And one day I was just like, oh, like, it was COVID actually. And I got to sit and play with my own makeup and it made me love makeup again. There were no time constraints. There was no one telling me, oh, it has to match with this outfit or it's for this product we're selling. It was just me going, you know what? I want to put blue all over and I'm going to do it. And that transformative quality of taking the art of makeup and using it to escape and using it as a form of therapy and also to create that transformation. So it's about your fantasy at that moment. That is why I love makeup so much. And now, of course, I could just do that. I used to always just do it for myself, but now I get to share it with people. So I can transform in front of people and only show my best angles. And it's exciting. And I get to talk with people about makeup. Makeup is just everything.
It's so much fun. And even with Marilyn, who was beautiful without makeup, she looks completely different with it on, to the point that people will say, oh, she had a ton of plastic surgery. No, she didn't. She had a little tweak here and there. The tip of her nose, she had some cartilage on her nose, but that's makeup. That's the power of makeup.
The chin.
She had a chin implant.
I think she did, yeah. And here's things I love about that, because even Bella just admitted that when she was 14, she had a nose job. Marilyn was already beautiful. You can take these little tweaks and make yourself, it just takes it that closer to whatever that symmetry level is. They were
Yeah,
very
that's the
small
thing with
tweaks.
Marilyn.
Yeah, she knew how to use makeup too, to contour her nose, to contour the cheekbone. So I don't think it was like plastic surgery and suddenly she was Marilyn Monroe. It takes a lot more than that.
No, and like we were talking about earlier, like the way she would change the way she held her mouth or the lip shape that you can change with makeup and the eye shape, and it's just incredible. I remember many years ago seeing an interview with Kevin Aquan, and he was a little boy, and he talked about how one day his sister put on an orange lipstick, and just the look of that alone completely transformed her. And in that moment, that's when he fell in love with makeup, because he saw the transformative power of it.
Just going back to what you said, when Marilyn would transform, it wasn't just the makeup. When she would put the makeup on, she became Marilyn. So she would do those gestures. Maybe you were going to say that, Scott. But
yeah.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say really was, I think the amazing thing about Marilyn is she had the perfect canvas.
Well, yeah.
She was perfectly symmetrical. That's what I think defines beauty, is when you're perfectly symmetrical. Your eyes are perfectly level, your ears are level, all of these things. She had that great canvas, and really it was applying makeup, and you just had this amazing result, which is the masterpiece.
Going back to the canvas, she took good care of her skin. She was ahead of her time taking care of her skin. So for folks out there listening to this, take good care of your skin.
I just want to say something else too. And I don't want this to come off as some facetious thing, but there's things about Marilyn that there's a reason why some people can't quite, they could capture the look with the makeup and the hair and the whatever, but not. One, I don't mean to sound bad. She had a really big head. So I think it made this sort of like infantileness to her. So this big head and this cute little body, she became like a baby doll. And she also had very wide apart eyes. And I think someone mentioned, it was like somebody maybe that had seen her after she had passed, and like it was this woman, suppose it was like, oh my gosh, her eyes are so far apart. Again, this is not a bad thing. This photographs beautifully. All the actresses I've worked with have big heads, so the big head is a big factor. And I have a peanut head, and I wish I had a big head so I could be like Marilyn. But also the fact that the eyes are so wide apart, they could do so much with her face, and it photographed beautiful from every angle. So these are two physical elements that you cannot create with makeup or anything.
And they say that actors and actresses a lot of times need big heads or big faces because you have to see them basically. So that explains some of it.
The body looks small. It makes the waist look tiny. So Marilyn, she was tiny anyway, but imagine having a big head anyway. So a lot of actors are like that. And also you're in a scene partner with, the men are short with big heads too. So I love seeing them. I know it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. So if any people out there have a big head, you're freaking lucky. Amazing. I find that though, some of the questions you asked me, I keep driving it back to Marilyn, but I guess I'm so excited because you'll ask me like broad range questions. And then I just immediately think of Marilyn as I'm like explaining.
But that's a point of this show, is we want to know not just about makeup, but makeup is so integral to how people perceive Marilyn. When you think of Marilyn, you think of eyelashes, beauty mark, red lipstick,
lips,
and then the platinum hair, and eyes, lips, and beauty mark, and you know who it is.
Yeah.
And there aren't many people you can do that with.
So I would just say, if anybody's really interested in Marilyn's makeup, you can watch my TikTok because I got a lot of stuff on there for one. But there's a few books, the Christie's auction, or you can even just go, I think, onto Christie's website and you can see her makeup case. Of course, Ripley's has her makeup case now, although all the things that are in the box in this picture are not in Ripley's case. I would like to know more about that, but I might have the answer. And anyway, so all of her products are listed. If you want to find out some things that Whitey had talked about with Marilyn, about how he did her makeup, the Metamorphosis Marilyn Monroe book.
David Wills.
There's another book called Falling for Marilyn. And it's on page 9, page 10. She talks a little bit about how she does her makeup there. And that was when she did Niagara. So it's just, if you really like obsessed like I am, then those are some ways to find it. But I have lots of Marilyn content coming, and the LS22 is coming. So yeah, I think that's
good stuff. Good stuff. So Erin, share with our listeners where they can see you online and how they can follow you on your journey.
If you want to follow me on TikTok or Instagram, it's at Erin Parsons Makeup, ErinParsons. Don't forget the S. Everyone calls me Parson. It's Parsons. Okay, so Erin Parsons Makeup, or if you want to look at my portfolio, you can look up erinparsons.com. That will take you to my agency's website, and you can see all the cool stuff I've done over the years. And I think that's it.
Your videos are
There's a lot there.
Entertaining and fun and just really enjoyable. Erin, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. It sounds like you got really big things coming. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh my God, you guys are awesome. So much fun.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'd love to hear your feedback, thoughts, comments, ideas, and suggestions for future episodes. You can email Elisa and me at allthingsmarylandpodcast@gmail.com. We will see you next time for All Things Marilyn.
Good night, man.
Bye-bye.
You loved on the screen, and that's the one thing that survived,
I realize more and more the responsibility, but you do miss sometimes just being able to be completely yourself and someplace and people just know you as another human being.